The night was quiet, and the human man sat on his porch with a small lantern beside him. He had worked all day in the fields, and now he was resting, his eyes on the stars above. The air was cool, the kind of silence that made every small sound louder than it should be. Then, he heard something, a rustle near his garden. At first he thought it was just an animal searching for scraps, but the sound was strange, too soft, too careful, as if whoever was moving did not want to be found. He rose slowly from his chair, his boots crunching on the ground, and moved toward the sound. There, in the faint glow of the lantern, he saw her. A little figure crouched near the edge of his garden, her hand shaking as she tried to pull out a piece of bread he had left on the stone table. It was not an animal, it was a little girl, but not human. Her skin had a faint silver glow, almost like moonlight. Her hair was tangled, her clothes torn, her small body thin from hunger. Her eyes, large and bright, looked up at him in terror. She froze like a frightened animal caught stealing. The human man stood still, surprised. For a moment, neither of them spoke. He saw the crumbs on her lips, saw the way her small hands clutched the bread as if it was life itself. His heart softened. "You're hungry," he said quietly, his voice calm. The girl's lips trembled, but she did not answer. Instead, she stuffed the bread into her mouth, chewing quickly, afraid he might take it back. He stepped closer, and she flinched, almost ready to run, but her legs shook so badly she could barely stand. The man bent down, keeping his distance. "I won't hurt you," he whispered. "Eat, little one, eat." The girl blinked, her throat working hard as she swallowed. Her stomach growled loud in the silence. Tears filled her glowing eyes. She shook her head slowly as if she could not believe someone would allow her to eat. The man sighed, walked back to his porch, and returned with a small bowl of soup. He placed it on the stone table and stepped back. She stared at it, then at him. Slowly, painfully, she crawled closer, sniffed it, and then grabbed the bowl. She drank as if every drop was precious. Some spilled down her chin, but she did not stop until the bowl was empty. When she finished, she looked at him again. Her lips moved, as if she wanted to speak, but no words came. Instead, a small sound escaped her, a broken sob of relief. The human man felt his chest tighten. Who was she? Where had she come from? Why was a little alien girl all alone in the dark, starving near his home? "Do you have a family?" he asked softly. The girl lowered her head, her thin shoulders trembling. She hugged the empty bowl as if it was the only thing she owned. The man did not press further. He knew pain when he saw it. He let her sit there, her small body shaking. The lantern light made her look even more fragile, like glass that could shatter with one wrong touch. He wanted to ask more questions, but the fear in her eyes held him back. For tonight, it was enough that she had eaten. He sat nearby, giving her space, while she slowly leaned against the stone table, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Within minutes, she fell asleep right there, her small arms still wrapped around the bowl. The man stayed awake, watching her. Something deep inside told him this was only the beginning. A hungry stranger had entered his life tonight, and nothing would ever be the same again. The human man woke up early the next morning, the memory of the strange little girl still fresh in his mind. When he went outside, the spot near the garden was empty. The bowl was gone too, as if she had carried it away in her small arms. For a moment, he wondered if it had all been a dream, but the footprints in the soil told him it was real. Tiny marks, half dragged, showing how weak she had been. He sighed and shook his head, whispering to himself, "She was just a child. Where could she go?" The day passed slowly. He worked in the fields but found himself distracted. Every sound in the distance made him turn his head. By nightfall, he was sitting again on the porch with his lantern, waiting without knowing why. Then, he heard it, the same soft rustle, but heavier this time. He stood quickly, heart beating faster. The shadows moved near the garden, and there she was again, the little alien girl. But she was not alone. Behind her stood a taller figure, a woman, her body thin yet graceful. Her skin glowed faintly silver like the girl's, but her eyes were sharper, filled with suspicion. Her clothes were torn, and she carried exhaustion on her face like a heavy weight. The girl ran forward first, holding the empty bowl tightly in her hands. She placed it on the stone table and looked up at the human with wide eyes. He noticed her lips curve into a faint, shy smile. It was the first time he had seen her smile, and it struck him like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. But the woman, she stepped closer, her body tense, Her eyes scanned him from head to toe. She did not speak at first, only stood protectively in front of her daughter. The silence stretched, thick with caution. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and rough. "Did you feed my child?" The man nodded slowly. "She was hungry," he said gently. "She had nothing. I couldn't let her starve." The woman's lips pressed together, her jaw tight. For a long moment she seemed ready to grab her daughter and vanish. But then the girl tugged at her hand and pointed at the soup pot near the man's chair. The mother's eyes softened slightly, just slightly. The man went inside, brought out another bowl of warm soup, and placed it on the stone table. The girl rushed to it eagerly, but this time the mother pulled her back. She sniffed it first, suspicious. Then, with slow hands, she let her daughter eat. The child's happiness was too pure to ignore. The woman finally spoke again. "You are human," she said the word carefully, almost like it was strange on her tongue. "You should not help us. Your kind avoids mine. Why risk it?" The man looked at her tired face, the hollow cheeks, the protective arms around the girl. "Because she is just a child," he answered, "and no child should starve." Something flickered in the woman's eyes. Pain, maybe gratitude, but hidden under layers of fear. She lowered her head for a moment, as if fighting back tears. The girl finished her soup and leaned against her mother's side, her small hand still holding the empty bowl like it was a treasure. The man wanted to ask questions, where they came from, why they were alone, but he stayed silent. He knew the answers would come in time. Right now, trust was more important than curiosity. The woman finally said, "We cannot stay long, but thank you." Her voice broke slightly on the last words. It sounded like pride and pain tangled together. The human watched them as they disappeared into the night. But before leaving, the girl turned back once, her glowing eyes meeting his. She gave him a small wave, and then they were gone, swallowed by the darkness. The man sat back on the porch, his chest heavy. Something told him this was not the last time he would see them. The hungry child had returned, and with her aim a mother who carried secrets as heavy as the stars. The next evening, the human man did not wait on his porch. He sat closer to the stone table, a fresh pot of soup beside him. Something inside told him they would return again, and he was right. The girl came first, running on thin legs, her silver hair bouncing in the lantern glow. Her little hands clutched the empty bowl from yesterday. Behind her, slower this time, came the mother. Her face was tired, but her eyes burned with something deeper, fear, worry, and a strange determination. The man poured soup into the bowl, and the girl smiled, eating happily. Her joy filled the silent night, but the mother did not touch the food. She stood still, watching him with eyes sharp like a blade. At last, she spoke. "You are kind," she said softly, "but kindness can be dangerous." The man tilted his head, curious. "I don't see danger in feeding a hungry child," he replied. The woman shook her head slowly. "You do not understand, human. We are not welcome here, not in your villages, not in your world, not even in our own tribe, my daughter and I. We have nowhere left to go." The man felt the weight of her words. There was more pain behind them than she showed. He looked at the little girl, eating as if she had been starved for weeks. She was innocent, but her mother's trembling hands revealed the truth. Survival had not been easy. The woman stepped closer, her voice breaking. "We were cast out. My people said I was cursed. They told me my child would bring only ruin, so they turned us away. Since then, we wander, hiding, begging, stealing, starving, and tonight, you gave her food when no one else would." Her voice cracked at the last words. For the first time, her proud eyes filled with tears. She looked at him, not as a stranger, but as someone who might understand. The man remained silent for a long moment. He could hear the night wind moving through the trees, the quiet sound of the girl sipping her soup. Every detail pressed into him like a choice he could not avoid. Finally, he said, "No child should carry such a fate, and no mother should be left alone like this." The woman lowered her head, tears sliding down her cheeks. Her shoulders shook as she whispered, "I cannot protect her alone. I have no strength left. Please, we need help. I beg you, human, do not turn us away like the others." The words hit him harder than he expected. It was not just a request for food. It was a plea for survival, a desperate cry from a mother who had lost everything except her daughter. The girl looked up at him then, her glowing eyes wide and trusting. She hugged the bowl to her chest, as if holding proof that he was different from the rest. The man felt something stir deep inside his chest, something he had not felt in years. Responsibility. He nodded slowly. You can stay, both of you. At least, until you are safe. The mother gasped softly, covering her mouth. Her knees nearly gave way as she whispered, You would take us in, even knowing who we are? I don't care who you are, he answered. I see only a mother and a daughter who need a home. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with emotion. The little girl crawled forward and touched his hand lightly, her small fingers warm. It was the first time she had dared to reach for him, and in that moment, the bond between them began to grow. The woman's eyes glistened, but she nodded. Then we will stay, if you truly mean it. The man gave a firm nod. His heart knew the road ahead would not be simple, but he also knew he could not turn them away. That night, for the first time in a long while, the mother slept without fear, and the child slept with a smile, while the human lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what storm he had just invited into his quiet life. The next days passed quietly. The man's small house, once empty and silent, now carried new sounds. The little girl's laughter when she played with wooden spoons, the soft humming of her mother while she washed clothes near the stream. It was strange, but also comforting. The man had not realized how lonely his life had been until now. One evening, as the sun was setting, the girl sat near the fire eating bread. The mother sat across from the man, her silver eyes watching him carefully. She seemed restless, her hands twisting the fabric of her torn dress. Finally, she spoke, her words heavy. You do not understand what you have done for us, human, she said. In my people's way. When someone feeds another who is starving, it is not only kindness, it is a bond. To save a life with food is to claim responsibility for it. The man frowned, confused. I only gave her something to eat, he replied. To me, that is just what any decent person should do. The woman shook her head. Not in our law, not in our traditions. You fed her, and then you fed me too. You are tied to us now. My tribe would see it no other way. He stared at her, surprised. What do you mean by tied? Her face flushed with emotion, half shame and half fear. It means you are no longer just a stranger to us. It means you are part of us, she whispered. Her voice dropped even lower. It means you are bound to me. The man leaned back, shocked. I never agreed to that, he said quickly. I only wanted to help. I didn't expect this. The little girl looked up from her bread, tilting her head in confusion. She did not understand the tension in the air. Her small voice cut through the silence. Mother says you are family now, she said simply. Then she smiled and returned to her food. The man's chest tightened. Family? The word carried weight he had not felt in years. He looked at the child's innocent face and the mother's trembling hands, and he realized their culture had turned his small act of kindness into something far greater. The mother lowered her eyes, ashamed. I know it is strange to you, but if others from my people saw us now, they would believe we belong to you. They would see me as your mate. The words hung in the air like a storm. The man said nothing at first, his mind spinning. He had lived alone for so long, never expecting such a bond, and now a custom he did not even understand was binding him to two lives. Finally he sighed. I don't know your laws, but I cannot turn you away either. If this bond means protection, then so be it. You and your daughter are safe here. The woman's breath caught, her eyes wide, her lips trembled as if she wanted to say more but could not. Instead, she simply nodded, her face softening with a kind of fragile relief. That night, the little girl curled up beside the fire with her bowl. The mother sat in silence, her silver hair catching the firelight, and the man lay awake. He wondered what kind of world he had stepped into, a world where giving bread could bind two lives together, a world of strange customs that could not be undone. The quiet house was no longer his alone. It now carried the weight of tradition and the shadow of a choice he had never meant to make. The days grew longer, and the man tried to keep his life normal. He worked in his fields, chopped wood, and fixed the broken fence. But life was not the same anymore. Now, when he returned home, the little girl would run to him with a smile, holding up wildflowers she had picked, and her mother would be there too, watching quietly, her silver eyes soft yet guarded. The man had accepted their presence, but the world outside his home had eyes too, and soon those eyes began to notice. One morning, while the man was walking back from the market in the village, he felt the stares. Whispers rose behind him, words half hidden but sharp enough to hear. Did you see him? He has strangers living with him. Not just strangers, aliens. And one of them is a woman, young and with a child. The man tightened his grip on the sack of grain he carried. He did not look back, but he could feel the weight of their judgment pressing against his back. He knew this day would come. No kindness ever stayed hidden for long. That evening, when he reached home, the little girl ran out as usual, her laughter bright, but behind her, he saw a figure standing by the edge of the road, an old villager staring at the scene. The man's heart sank. The villager's eyes narrowed, and without a word, he turned and walked away. The news would spread now, faster than fire in dry grass. The next day, more eyes followed him in the market, some curious, some hostile, some mocking. He heard one man laugh. Looks like the human has taken himself an alien bride, can't find a woman of his own kind, so he brings one from the stars. The laughter stung, but the man kept walking. He had no interest in explaining himself. Still, when he returned home, the weight of those words followed him. The alien mother noticed it too. That night, she asked quietly, "They are watching us, aren't they?" The man nodded slowly. "Yes, they have seen you and they are already talking." Her shoulders stiffened. She looked down at her daughter sleeping peacefully near the fire. Her voice trembled as she said, "My people cast us out because they feared us. Now your people will do the same. Perhaps we should not stay." But the man shook his head firmly. "No, let them talk. I gave you shelter and I will not take it back because of their whispers." Her silver eyes searched his face for a long moment. Then, for the first time, she smiled. Not a small, careful smile, but one touched with real warmth. It was brief, but it stayed with him. The following week, the whispers grew louder. A group of villagers even came near his fence pretending to pass by. Their eyes lingered too long. Their words carried too far. Look at them. She sits by his fire like she owns the place. He lets the child call him father already. Strange customs, strange people. Dangerous. The mother kept her head down, but her hands shook when she worked. The man saw it and felt anger burning in his chest. He knew words alone could not silence the village, but he also knew one truth. He could not abandon them now, no matter how heavy the eyes of the villagers became. That night, as he stood outside looking at the stars, the mother came to him. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "They will not stop, and soon they will demand an answer. They will want to know if you are truly my mate." The man turned sharply. Her eyes glistened in the lantern light. It was not a question. It was a warning. The villagers' eyes had seen too much, and soon their judgment would force him to choose. The whispers of the villagers did not fade. Each day the man could feel their judgment pressing heavier on his shoulders. When he went to the market, their eyes followed him. When he carried water from the well, their murmurs chased after his steps. But it was not only him who felt the weight. The alien mother felt it even more. She tried to hide her fear from her daughter. She worked hard, cleaning, cooking, mending torn clothes. But every night, when the child had fallen asleep, her face changed. Her silver eyes grew heavy with sorrow, and one evening she could not hold it back any longer. The man was sitting by the fire, sharpening his tools. The girl was asleep, curled up under a blanket. The mother moved closer, her hands trembling as she clutched the fabric of her dress. "Human," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I cannot protect her anymore. Not alone." The man looked up, frowning. "You are safe here, I promised you that." Her lips quivered. "Safe?" she repeated softly. "No, not safe. Not while they watch us, not while they call me cursed. The whispers are growing, soon they will come. And when they do, they will not only question you, they will take her away from me." Her words cut deep into him. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that no one would dare. But the fear in her eyes told him she had lived this before. Her people had already cast her out. Her pain was not an imagination. It was memory. She fell to her knees suddenly, her silver hair falling across her face. "Please," she begged, her voice shaking. "I know I should not ask this of you, but I have no other way. Take me as your wife. Stand as my mate. If you do, their laws cannot touch us. They will not be able to separate me from my daughter. They will have no right." The man froze, the whetstone slipping from his hand. Her words struck like thunder in his ears. He stared at her, stunned. Marriage? A bond that was more than custom, more than kindness? He shook his head slowly, his voice low. "I never meant to claim you. I only wanted to help." Tears streamed down her cheeks, her pride breaking before his eyes. "You already claimed us," she whispered. "The moment you fed her, the moment you gave us a home, you cannot undo it. Please, I am begging you, do not let them take her. Do not let them take the only reason I live." The little girl stirred in her sleep, whimpering softly. The mother reached out, touching her daughter's hair, her hands trembling. Her voice was a choked whisper now. "She is all I have, and you are all she has left." The man's chest tightened. He had faced storms, hunger, and loneliness, but never had he faced a plea like this. This was not about tradition anymore. It was about survival, about a mother's desperate fight to keep her child. He closed his eyes, struggling with the weight of the choice. If he said no, they would always live in fear. If he said yes, his life would never be the same. When he opened his eyes, he found her still kneeling, her tears falling silently onto the floor. Slowly, he reached out, lifting her by the shoulders. "Stand," he said quietly. "I do not need you to beg. If this is the only way to keep you safe, then I will stand with you." The mother gasped, her lips trembling. For a moment, she looked as though she might fall again, this time from relief. Her silver eyes locked on his, shining with gratitude and something deeper she dared not name. She whispered, almost too soft to hear, "Thank you, husband." The word hung between them, heavy and strange, but in her voice it was filled with hope. And for the first time, the man realized that what had begun as a small act of kindness was shaping into something far larger, a bond that could not be broken, a promise that could not be undone. The word echoed in his ears long after she spoke it, husband. The man sat by the fire that night, staring at the flames. The mother had gone to rest, her daughter curled safely against her side, but he could not sleep. Her plea replayed again and again in his mind. He had not planned this, he had not asked for it, and yet here it was, a choice that weighed heavier than anything he had faced before. When dawn came, he walked out to the fields. He worked with his hands, trying to bury the thoughts in sweat and soil, but nothing silenced the truth. If he accepted her fully, his quiet life would end. The villagers would mock him, question him, maybe even drive him out. If he refused her, she and her daughter would be hunted, cast out again, and this time, they might not survive. As he thought, he saw the little girl running across the field, her laughter like soft bells in the morning air. She carried a flower in her tiny hands, and when she reached him, she held it up proudly. "For you," she said with a smile. He took it gently, his heart tightening. It was such a small thing, but it felt like a chain, an invisible bond stronger than iron. Later that evening, the mother approached him again. Her face was calm now, but her eyes searched his as if looking for an answer. "Do you regret it?" she asked softly. "Letting us stay? Hearing me call you that word?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "I don't regret feeding you. I don't regret giving you shelter, but I fear what comes after." She lowered her gaze, her hands clasping tightly. "I understand," she whispered. "But sometimes choice is not about what we want. It is about what must be done." Her words cut deep. He thought of the whispers in the village, the hostile stares, the laughter at his back. He thought of the little girl's trusting smile, the way she had begun to call him father without hesitation, and finally, he thought of the mother's tears when she begged. No, this was not about him anymore. That night he made his choice. When the mother sat by the fire, he spoke quietly but firmly. "I will not run from this. If their eyes demand an answer, then I will give it. You and your daughter are mine to protect now, Not because your customs demand it, but because I have chosen it." The mother's lips parted in shock, her breath catching. For a moment she said nothing, as if she could not believe him. Then slowly, tears gathered in her eyes, not of sorrow this time, but of relief. Her voice trembled. "Then you are truly different, different from all who turned us away." The little girl stirred awake at that moment, rubbing her sleepy eyes. She looked at them, her gaze innocent. "Are we staying?" she asked softly. The man smiled faintly and nodded. "Yes, little one. You're staying. Both of you are staying." The girl's face lit up, and she hugged him with small, warm arms. The mother watched, her heart in her throat, and for the first time since being cast out, she felt something she thought she had lost forever: hope. But even as the fire burned warm inside the house, the night outside carried whispers of danger. The villagers had seen too much. Their judgment would not wait forever. The man had made his choice. Now the world would test it. The man's choice brought peace inside his home, but outside, the whispers grew louder. The villagers' curiosity had turned into suspicion, and suspicion soon turned into action. One afternoon, as the man was repairing his fence, 3 strangers appeared at the edge of his land. They were not human. Their skin shimmered silver like the mother's, their eyes cold and sharp. Warriors from her tribe, the very people who had cast her out. The man stood tall, his tools still in hand. The little girl peeked from behind the door, her small hands clutching the frame. The mother stepped out, her face pale, her body trembling. She recognized them immediately. They were not just any men. They were enforcers, chosen to uphold the tribe's laws. One of them spoke, his voice deep and harsh. "So it is true, you live with this human, you dishonor our blood, and you bind yourself to him." The mother lowered her eyes but did not deny it. Her silence was an answer. The warrior sneered, turning his gaze to the man. "Human, you have taken what is not yours. Do you know the law of our people? Do you know what it means to claim a woman of our tribe?" The man did not answer. The warrior's lips curled into a cruel smile. "It means you must prove your worth. If you fail, she and the child return with us. If you succeed, she is truly yours." The mother gasped, stepping forward. "No, you cast us out. You left us to starve. You have no right to demand this." But the warrior ignored her, his eyes locked on the man. "Will you face the challenge, human, or will you give them up?" The man's jaw tightened. He looked at the mother, her face full of fear. He looked at the little girl, her eyes wide and wet with tears, and deep inside, he already knew the answer. "I will face it," he said firmly. The warriors laughed, shaking their heads. "A foolish choice, but we will honor it. Tomorrow, at the Clower's Alms. Earring by the river. Come ready. If you survive, you keep them. If not, they are ours." With that, they turned and vanished into the forest. The silence they left behind was heavier than stone. The mother collapsed to her knees, her hands covering her face. "Why did you agree?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "They will kill you. No human has ever passed their challenge." The man knelt beside her, lifting her chin gently. "I made a choice. I will not let them take you. Not you, not your daughter." Tears streamed down her silver cheeks. "You don't understand. Their tests are not fair fights. They will push you to the edge of death. They will make you suffer." The man's eyes hardened. "I have suffered before. I can suffer again, but I will not abandon you." That night, there was no laughter in the house. The little girl clung to him, whispering, "Don't go, please don't go." He stroked her hair gently. "I must, little one. For you, for your mother, for us." The mother sat in silence, her face pale in the firelight. Her hands shook as she whispered prayers to the stars. She had begged him once to be her husband. Now she wanted to beg him not to fight, but she knew his heart was set. Outside, the forest was quiet, but deep within its shadows, the tribe prepared for the test. A trial designed not to test courage, but to break it. The man lay awake until dawn. The challenge awaited, and by tomorrow, his choice would either bind them forever or tear them apart. The morning of the challenge came heavy with mist. The man walked toward the river clearing, his boots sinking into damp soil. Behind him, the mother held her daughter close, her face pale with fear. She whispered prayers under her breath, though she doubted the stars were listening. The clearing was not empty. Dozens of the silver-skinned tribe had gathered, their eyes cold, their whispers sharp. To them, this was entertainment, a human daring to claim what belonged to their people. It was laughable, but still, their laws demanded the challenge, so they came to watch. The three enforcers from the day before stepped forward. One of them carried a staff carved with symbols. He raised it high and shouted, "By our law, this human will prove his right. If he fails, the woman and her child return to us. If he succeeds, he becomes one of us." The crowd murmured, half amused, half curious. Could a human truly endure what no outsider had before? The first test began. Two warriors stepped into the clearing, circling the man like wolves. Their bodies were tall, lean, built for speed and strength. They moved quickly, striking with wooden spears. The man dodged the first strike, but the second caught his arm, tearing his sleeve and drawing blood. Gasps rose from the crowd. The mother cried out, but the girl buried her face in her dress. The man gritted his teeth, holding his ground. He remembered long nights of labor, heavy storms, and hunger that had once bent him to his knees. He had endured worse. He grabbed the spear of the nearest warrior and yanked, pulling the man off balance. Then he struck with his fist, not elegant but powerful. The warrior stumbled back, stunned. The second lunged, but the man ducked and slammed his shoulder into his chest. Both warriors fell to the ground. The crowd roared, some in shock, some in anger. The enforcer nodded slowly. Strong but strong. Strength alone is not enough. The second test began. A pit was uncovered at the edge of the clearing. Inside it burned coals, glowing red, heat rising into the air. The enforcer spoke. "Walk across, human. If you falter, you fail. If you endure, you prove your spirit." The man looked down at the burning path. His heart pounded. Every instinct screamed at him to stop. But then he saw the girl's wide eyes, her small hands clutching her mother's dress, and he stepped forward. The pain was immediate, fire biting into his feet. Each step felt like knives cutting into flesh, but he clenched his jaw and kept moving. One step, then another. The crowd watched in silence. The mother sobbed quietly, her hands shaking. At last, he reached the other side, collapsing to his knees, smoke rising from his blistered skin. The enforcer's eyes narrowed. He had expected the man to fail, but he had not. "Rise, human," he ordered. The man stood slowly, his body trembling but his spirit unbroken. The third and final test was announced, a duel against the strongest warrior of the tribe, a man twice his size, carrying a heavy blade that shimmered in the light. The crowd cheered, certain the human would fall now. The fight began. The warrior struck fast, his blade cutting the air. The man barely dodged, the edge grazing his shoulder. He staggered but refused to yield. He grabbed a fallen staff from the ground, holding it like a weapon. Each strike from the warrior pushed him back, but each time he stood again, blood on his arms, sweat on his brow. He fought not with skill but with stubborn will. The girl cried out, "Don't stop! Please don't stop!" Her small voice cut through the chaos. The man's heart surged. He swung the staff with all his strength, striking the warrior across the chest. The giant stumbled, shocked. The man pressed forward, delivering another blow. The warrior dropped. To one knee, breathless. The crowd gasped. The human stood tall, chest heaving, bloodied but unbroken. The enforcer raised the staff of judgment high. "Enough! He has endured. He has fought. He has proven respect." Silence swept through the clearing. Then slowly the tribe lowered their heads, not in mockery but in acknowledgement. The mother's knees gave way as tears fell. The girl ran forward, hugging the man's waist, crying and laughing at once. "You did it! You won!" The man placed a hand on her head, his body aching. He looked at the mother, her silver eyes shining with pride and something deeper. For the first time, the tribe had no power over them. For the first time, he was not just a human, he was her protector, her choice, her equal. The battle was over, but the respect he had earned would last forever. The clearing was still, the crowd silent after the final blow. The man stood breathless, blood running down his arm, his feet raw from fire, his body bruised, but his spirit burned brighter than the flames he had walked through. The enforcer lowered his staff, his voice rang out across the tribe. "By the law of our people, he has endured. By the strength of his spirit, he has earned respect. This woman and child no longer belong to us. They belong with him. Murmurs spread through the gathering. Some voices carried disbelief, others quiet awe, but none could deny what they had seen with their own eyes. A human had faced their trials and survived, and survival was honor. The mother sank to her knees, her hands covering her mouth. Tears streamed down her silver cheeks. For years, she had been an outcast, unwanted, cursed, and now, before all her people, a human had stood where none of them had dared, and claimed her not as a burden, but as his choice. The little girl broke free from her mother's arms and ran to him. She threw herself against his chest, hugging him tightly despite his wounds. Her small voice trembled as she whispered, "You didn't let them take us. You are my father now. Forever." The man's heart clenched. He placed a hand on her head, his voice low. "Forever," he said, and he meant it. The mother rose slowly, her eyes locked on him. She stepped forward, her knees shaking. And then, before the tribe and the stars above, she fell to her knees at his feet. Her voice cracked with emotion as she spoke. "You saved me. You saved my child. I begged you once to be my husband. And you have proven it in a way no one else could. From this moment, you are not only our protector, you are my mate." The words struck him deeply, not out of surprise anymore, but out of truth. He reached down, pulling her to her feet. "You don't need to beg. Stand beside me. That's where you belong." For the first time, she smiled through her tears. It was not a shy smile, nor a broken one. It was a smile of pride, of a woman who had found a home again. The enforcer nodded with respect. "Human, you are not one of us. But today, you have shown a heart stronger than many of our own. We will not challenge your claim again." With that, the tribe dispersed, some with reluctance, others with new respect. The man, the mother, and the child walked back toward his small home. The little girl skipped ahead, humming to herself, her joy uncontainable. The mother walked at his side, her hand brushing against his, not by accident but by choice. When they reached the porch, the girl turned to them. "Does this mean we are a family now?" she asked, her glowing eyes wide. The man and the mother exchanged a glance. He nodded slowly. "Yes, we are a family now." The girl clapped her hands, laughing. Then she curled up near the fire, falling asleep with peace on her face. The mother sat beside him, the night air cool. She whispered, her voice soft but certain, "You gave me more than food. You gave me a life again. I will never forget it." The man looked at her, at the child sleeping soundly, and for the first time in many years he felt something he thought was lost. Not duty, not loneliness, not survival, but belonging. He took her hand gently. "We start over," he said, "together." The stars shimmered above them, the fire crackled softly, and in that quiet moment the three of them were no longer strangers. They were no longer outcasts or lonely souls. They were something new, a family reborn.